My fiancé announced, "My ex is my best woman at our wedding, or there's no wedding." I calmly said, "Your choice." Then I canceled the venue, notified the guests, and sent him a bill for my half. 6 weeks before our wedding. That was when my engagement ended. My name is Natalie Carter. I'm 32 years old, and until last Tuesday evening, I thought I was about to marry the man I planned to build the rest of my life with. His name was Ethan Blake. We had been together for 4 years, engaged for 1. For most of that time, our relationship felt stable, comfortable in the way relationships do when you've survived enough small arguments and awkward family dinners to believe the foundation is solid. The wedding planning had been going smoothly. Venue booked, catering confirmed, invitations already mailed. Our guest list was around 150 people. Between deposits and vendors, we had already spent roughly $28,000, split almost perfectly down the middle. $14,000 from him, $14,000 from me. It wasn't a tiny wedding, but it wasn't extravagant either. Just enough to celebrate the start of what I thought would be a long, uncomplicated marriage. I was wrong. The conversation that ended everything started on a quiet Tuesday night. Ethan asked if we could talk. Not casually, not the usual. "Can we go over the seating chart again?" He sat across from me at the kitchen table with the kind of serious expression people wear when they already know you won't like what comes next. The apartment was quiet except for the faint hum of the dishwasher. I remember noticing the way his fingers tapped against the table like he had been rehearsing the speech in his head. "Nat," he said finally, "there's something important we need to discuss about the wedding." That sentence never leads anywhere good. "What about it?" I asked. He took a breath. "Chloe needs to be my best woman." For a second, I thought I had misheard him. "Chloe?" I repeated. "His ex-girlfriend. The woman he had dated for 3 years in college. The same woman who still seemed to orbit every major moment in his life. Birthdays, holiday dinners, random drinks when Ethan needed someone to talk through work stress." Ethan nodded like this was completely reasonable. "She's my best friend, Natalie. You know that." I stared at him. "You want your ex-girlfriend standing next to you at our wedding." "She's not just an ex," he said quickly. "She's family to me." That word landed badly, because the version of their history I knew was a little different. "Family?" I said quietly. "You dated her for 3 years. That was a long time ago. And you broke up because she cheated on you with your roommate." He waved a hand like that detail no longer mattered. "That was 7 years ago. People grow up." I leaned back in my chair and studied him. The truth was, this wasn't the first time Chloe had been a problem. It was just the first time Ethan had asked me to publicly accept exactly how much space she occupied in our relationship. "Ethan," I said carefully, "I've never told you that you couldn't be friends with her." "That's because you trust me." "I tolerated it," I corrected. His expression tightened. "What's that supposed to mean?" "It means I've spent 4 years pretending I'm comfortable with your ex being woven into every important part of your life." "She's not—" "Ethan," I cut in softly, "she calls you at midnight. That's because she trusts me. You go over to her apartment when she's having a bad week. Because I'm a good friend. And now you want her standing next to you when we say our vows." The room went quiet. For a moment, he looked more irritated than reflective, like he genuinely couldn't understand why this was a problem. Then his voice hardened. "This is non-negotiable, Natalie." The words hung in the air between us. "Non-negotiable." I held his gaze. "What exactly are you saying?" His jaw tightened. "I'm saying Chloe is my best woman. And if I'm not okay with that?" He didn't look away. "Then there's no wedding." The silence that followed lasted longer than I expected. Long enough for something inside me to go still. Because people who make ultimatums almost never believe the other person will accept the outcome. I looked at Ethan, really looked at him. 4 years of memories flashed through my mind. Late night drives, vacations, arguments, apologies. And threaded through all of it, quietly and consistently, was Chloe. Not always visible, but always there. Finally, I nodded once. "Your choice," I said calmly. He blinked. "What?" "You heard me. I already told you my decision." And I heard it. I stood up from the table. "So according to your ultimatum," I said quietly, "there's no wedding." His chair scraped against the floor as he stood. "Natalie, wait, you're being ridiculous." "I'm taking you seriously." I walked down the hallway toward my home office. Behind me, I heard him exhale in frustration. "You're really going to throw away 4 years over this?" I paused at the doorway. "No," I said without turning around, "you are." Then I sat down at my desk, opened my laptop, and started typing. The first email went out at 11:43 p.m. to the venue coordinator. "Dear Amanda, due to unforeseen circumstances, Ethan Blake and I need to cancel our wedding reservation scheduled for next month. Please let me know the refund policy and next steps for cancellations at this stage." I hit send. 5 minutes later, I opened a spreadsheet. The numbers stared back at me. Venue deposit, catering deposit, photography contract, band reservation. $28,000 total. $14,000 from me, $14,000 from Ethan. I exhaled slowly and started drafting more emails. Caterer, photographer, band, florist. I wasn't assuming every vendor would instantly refund us. I was starting the cancellation process, documenting everything, and forcing the situation into writing before Ethan could wake up and pretend he hadn't meant what he said. By 2:07 a.m., every major vendor had been contacted. Then I drafted the email to our guests. Dear friends and family, due to irreconcilable differences that have recently come to light, Ethan and I have decided to cancel our upcoming wedding. We sincerely apologize for the inconvenience. If you have already made travel arrangements, please contact me directly and I will do my best to help with any non-refundable expenses. Thank you for your understanding. My finger hovered over the send button for a moment. Then I clicked. 150 people received that email at 2:18 a.m. When I finally closed my laptop, the apartment was silent. A little after midnight, Ethan had grabbed his keys, muttered that I was overreacting, and left to cool off, apparently convinced I would calm down by morning. But I knew something he didn't. The wedding was already over, because if a man needed his ex-girlfriend standing beside him more than he needed to marry me, then the marriage was never real to begin with. The next morning, my phone started exploding. Texts, missed calls, emails, relatives asking questions, friends demanding explanations. The most persistent calls came from Ethan. By the time I opened my apartment door that morning, he was already standing outside, pale, confused, holding his phone like it had personally betrayed him. Natalie, he said, his voice tight with disbelief, what did you do? Behind him, my phone buzzed again. Another guest asking if the cancellation email was real. I crossed my arms. I canceled the wedding. Ethan stared at me like I had spoken another language. You what? I canceled the wedding. He blinked twice, still gripping his phone. My mom just called me asking why she got an email saying the wedding is off, he said. My cousins are texting. My sister thinks we broke up. We did. The hallway between us went silent. You can't be serious. Ethan, you told me Chloe had to be your best woman, or there would be no wedding. That was a conversation, he snapped, not a final decision. It sounded final to me. He dragged a hand through his hair. Oh my God, Natalie, you actually contacted everyone. Yes. The venue too? Yes. The caterer, the photographer? Yes. The color drained from his face. You should have talked to me first. I did. That wasn't talking. That was an argument. And in that argument, you gave me an ultimatum. He opened his mouth to push back, then stopped. Because we both knew that part was true. I stepped aside enough for him to see into the apartment. My laptop was still open on the dining table, the spreadsheet still glowing on the screen. Ethan walked in slowly, like someone approaching the scene of an accident. You're unbelievable, he muttered. He looked down at the spreadsheet. Columns of numbers, refund estimates, vendor notes, my half, his half. You actually calculated everything. Of course I did. He pointed at the screen. What is this? The financial breakdown. Natalie, our wedding just got canceled and you're doing accounting? I'm being practical. He laughed once, bitterly. This is insane. I scrolled so he could see the final line items. Total wedding cost, $28,000. Estimated refunds, $16,500. Remaining loss, $11,500. Half owed per person, $5,750. I had rounded my side down slightly to account for a few uncertain vendor figures. My projected loss is about $5,500, I said. So is yours. Ethan stared at the screen. You're joking. No. You expect me to pay you? We split the wedding costs evenly. We split the losses evenly. His expression hardened instantly. You're acting like I destroyed the wedding. You did. I asked for one thing. You asked for your ex-girlfriend to stand beside you at our wedding. She's my best friend. And I told you I wasn't comfortable with that. You're overreacting. I studied his face. The frustration, the disbelief, and underneath both of them, the assumption that I would eventually fold. You didn't think I'd actually do it, I said quietly. Do what? Accept your ultimatum. Ethan exhaled sharply. Nat, come on. No. He stepped closer, lowering his voice like he was trying to talk sense into a child. Maybe I pushed too hard last night. Oh? Maybe Chloe doesn't have to be my best woman. I tilted my head. That's interesting. What? Last night you said it was non-negotiable. He rubbed his forehead. You're making this bigger than it needs to be. I'm responding to exactly how big you made it. You're punishing me. No, I said. I'm taking you at your word. He turned away and stared out the window. Cars moved slowly through the street below, people headed to work. Normal life continuing like ours hadn't just detonated overnight. "You know what this is really about?" he said finally. I didn't answer. "You never trusted me." "That's not true. You've always had a problem with Chloe." "I had a problem with the lack of boundaries." "There were boundaries." "Ethan, she calls you drunk at midnight." "Because I'm the only one who understands her." "You go to dinner with her when she's upset. She's my friend." "And now you want her standing next to you at our wedding." "That's because she matters to me." The words slipped out before he could stop them. And for a moment, neither of us spoke, because we had both heard what he had just admitted. "She matters to me." I nodded once. "I know." He looked at me like he wanted to take the words back. "That's not what I meant." "It's exactly what you meant." "I meant she's important as a friend. Important enough to risk losing your fiancé." He opened his mouth again, closed it, because there was no answer that made that sound better. I reached into the drawer beside my laptop and pulled out a small envelope. "What's that?" he asked. I slid it across the table. "The bill." He didn't touch it. "You're serious?" "Completely." "You're actually demanding money from me right now?" "I'm asking you to cover your half of the financial damage." "This was your decision." "No," I said quietly. "This was your ultimatum." Ethan picked up the envelope and opened it. Inside was a printed summary. Vendor cancellations, refund confirmations, remaining balance. At the bottom, amount owed, $5,500, payment due, 30 days. His face turned red almost immediately. "You've lost your mind." "I've documented everything," I said calmly. "Emails, receipts, contracts." "You're threatening to sue me?" "If necessary." He stared at me like I had suddenly become a stranger. "You would actually take me to court?" "If you refuse to pay your half." "That's insane." "No," I said. "Expecting me to absorb your half of the losses is insane." He crumpled the paper slightly in his hand. "I'm not paying you a cent. Then we'll handle it legally." He shook his head and walked toward the door. "I can't believe I almost married you." I shrugged. "Neither can I." That stopped him. He turned slowly. "What's that supposed to mean?" "It means," I said quietly, "I finally realized something last night." "And what's that?" "That I've been competing with Chloe for 4 years." "That's ridiculous." "Was it?" "Yes." "Then why was she worth canceling a wedding over?" He didn't answer. Instead, he yanked the door open. "This isn't over." "No," I said calmly. "It isn't." The door slammed hard enough to rattle the walls. A moment later, my phone buzzed. A new message. "Linda Blake, Ethan's mother. We need to talk." The call came less than 10 minutes later. "Natalie, sweetheart," Linda said, her voice tight with forced calm. "Ethan just explained everything." Of course he had. And judging by her tone, I could already guess how that explanation sounded. "This is a big misunderstanding," she continued. "There's no misunderstanding," I replied. "Ethan said Chloe had to be his best woman or there would be no wedding. I chose no wedding." Linda exhaled sharply. "Oh, honey, you know how men are about their friendships. Chloe has been in Ethan's life for years." "Yes," I said, "I'm aware. She's practically family. She's also the woman he dated for 3 years. That was ancient history. And yet she's still involved in everything." Linda's patience snapped. "You're being insecure." There it was. The jealous fiancé narrative. "I'm not insecure," I said calmly. "Then why cancel an entire wedding?" "Because Ethan made it conditional." "You're twisting his words." "No," I said. "I accepted them." Silence. Then her tone hardened. "You've devastated him. He gave the ultimatum. Because he thought you'd understand." "Understand what?" "That Chloe matters to him." I looked at the spreadsheet still open on my laptop. "I understand that perfectly. You need to fix this." That sentence carried the quiet authority of someone who had spent years cleaning up after her son's decisions. "Fix it how?" "Call the vendors back." "I can't. They've already processed the cancellations." Another pause. Then the question I expected. "How much money did you lose?" "About $5,500. "For both of you?" "For me." "And you expect Ethan to pay you?" "Yes." "You can't be serious." "We split the wedding costs equally." "That doesn't mean you send him a bill. It means we share the consequences." Her voice turned cold. "This is cruel." "No," I said quietly. "What's cruel is holding a wedding hostage just to keep an ex involved." Linda hung up. The social media storm started that afternoon. My phone buzzed nonstop. Messages from friends, mutual acquaintances, even distant relatives. Everyone asking the same question. What happened? When I opened Instagram, I found Ethan's answer. A long paragraph. It never mentioned my name, but the implication was obvious. Some people can't handle strong friendships between men and women. Jealousy destroys beautiful things. Trying to control who someone cares about isn't love. Hundreds of likes. Chloe had liked it within minutes. So had Linda. I stared at the screen for a moment. Then I did something Ethan probably didn't expect. I didn't argue. I didn't post a counter story. I simply replied to every private message with the same sentence. Ethan insisted his ex be his best woman at our wedding. I said no. Nothing else. No drama. Just the fact. Most people understood immediately. A few tried to argue. I stopped responding to those. 3 days later, security at my office called. There's someone here asking for you, the receptionist said. Who? Chloe Harris. Of course. Send her up. 5 minutes later, she walked into my office like she belonged there. Chloe looked exactly the same. Tall, confident, effortlessly attractive. She smiled like we were meeting for coffee. Natalie. Chloe. Mind if I sit? You already did. She laughed lightly. You've caused quite a situation. I didn't realize canceling my own wedding required permission. Her smile tightened. You know Ethan is devastated. He seems busy posting on Instagram. He's hurt. Interesting way of showing it. She leaned forward slightly. You're overreacting. To what? Friendship? You mean your friendship with my fiancé. Ex-fiancé, she corrected. I didn't react. She studied me carefully. You really canceled the wedding? Yes. Over me. Over boundaries. That's basically the same thing. We sat in silence for a moment. Then she asked something that caught my attention. So what happens about the money? What money? The $5,000 Ethan owes you. I stared at her, because there was only one way she could know that number. You two discussed it? She hesitated, only for a moment. But it was enough. Ethan mentioned it, she said. Of course he had. He's really stressed about it, she continued. Maybe you could be flexible. Flexible. I almost laughed. He has 30 days, she added. He? She froze, realizing what she had just revealed. You offered to pay it, I said slowly. That's not... You were going to cover his half. Her silence confirmed it. The realization settled quietly. This wasn't just friendship. Chloe wasn't defending Ethan because she believed he was right. She was already invested. That's fascinating, I said. What is? You wanted to stand next to him at the wedding badly enough to help pay for the canceled one. That's not what this is. Then explain it. She stood abruptly. I came here to help fix things. You can't. You're throwing away a good relationship because of pride. No, I said calmly. Because he chose you. Her mouth opened, but no words came out. That told me everything. She left a minute later. And as the door closed behind her, one thought settled clearly in my mind. Canceling the wedding had been the right decision. The next afternoon, an unfamiliar number called. Is this Natalie Carter? Yes. My name is Ryan. I think we need to talk about Ethan and Chloe. That got my attention. Why? Because Chloe was my girlfriend, he said. Was. Until yesterday. I waited. I broke up with her, he said. Why are you telling me this? Because the arguments that ended our relationship started with your wedding. Explain. Chloe came home furious about the cancellation, Ryan said. She said Ethan might need help paying you back. I leaned back slowly. So she told you about the money? Yeah, and it seemed strange. What happened next? I asked why she was so invested in another man's wedding finances. And? She admitted she'd been talking to Ethan constantly. Late-night conversations, complaints about your arguments, messages about how things might have been different if they had stayed together. Did Ethan shut it down? I asked. No. Ryan hesitated. She texted him last month. Sometimes I wonder if we gave up too easily. And his reply? Yeah, I think about that too. There it was. Not a physical affair, but emotionally, they had never really let go. What did you do? I asked. I asked Chloe to set boundaries with Ethan. And? She couldn't. Ryan exhaled slowly. So I ended it. I nodded quietly. That makes sense. I thought you deserved to know, he said. I appreciate it. I also saved screenshots, he added. Of their messages? Yes, in case you needed proof. I looked out the window. I don't, I said. Why not? Because people who know me won't believe their version anyway. Ryan chuckled softly. You handled this better than most people would. I'm not handling it well, I said. I'm just finished. The next evening, Ethan's father called. Do you have time to meet tomorrow? Michael Blake asked. We met the following afternoon at a small sports bar downtown. After listening to the entire story, Michael leaned back and sighed. That sounds like Ethan. You're not surprised? No. He took a sip of his beer. The ultimatum thing? He gets that from his mother. I laughed softly. That tracks. Michael nodded. Linda has been doing that to me for 30 years. He listed examples calmly. Ultimatums about holidays. Ultimatums about family visits. Ultimatums about where they lived. Eventually you give in, he said, and the behavior becomes normal. And Ethan learned that. Exactly. We sat quietly for a moment. Then Michael asked the question that mattered. How much does he owe you? I hesitated. About $5,500. Without another word, he pulled out his checkbook. Michael, you don't need to. Yes, he said, I do. He wrote the check quickly and slid it across the table. $5,500. This is between me and my son, he said. For what? I asked. for the 4 years he wasted. I finally picked up the check. You didn't have to do this. Yes, he said quietly. I should have taught him better boundaries. The next day would have been my wedding rehearsal. Instead, I deposited the check and started planning something different. A solo trip to Iceland. 3 weeks later, I stood under the northern lights. Green ribbons of light moved slowly across the dark sky. Silent, beautiful, unreal. I took one photo and posted it with a simple caption. Worth the trip. A few minutes later, I checked the viewer list. Friends, family, coworkers, and near the top, Ethan Blake. Still watching, still wondering. I locked my phone and slipped it into my pocket, because whatever questions he had left, they were no longer mine to answer. People still ask if I regret canceling the wedding, if letting Chloe stand beside him might have saved the relationship. My answer never changes. Absolutely not. Because the moment Ethan gave that ultimatum, he showed me exactly where I stood. Second place. And a marriage that begins with second place rarely ends any differently. The wedding might have been beautiful, but the marriage would have been a disaster. And the lesson that came out of the $5,500 worth of damage, worth every dollar,